something. I saw them moving. Good morning. Welcome to Little Legal Group's Coffee Chat. This week we're continuing our 10 things not to do in your estate plans. This is part 2. If you missed parts or the first 3, check it out from last week. So we'll do 3 more, going to cover 3 more this week. And the first one is adding people to bank accounts and your deeds. So problems.
So yeah, I think we get that a lot. I actually just spoke to someone yesterday whose grandmother thought it would be a good idea to add her to the deed of her house. And I'm not really sure what the thought process was there, but she added her. And now it's causing a lot of issues because the grandmother has since passed away. And in this particular case, they didn't avoid probate, which is usually the reason people do it. And so now grandma's half is going through probate and this person's half is still hers. And the family is in disagreement as to what to do with the house, as well as the granddaughter is going to be subject to a hefty sum of capital gains tax because grandma added her to the deed. And that's, I think, the biggest problem we see is with the capital gains. So that's the increase in price. So your starting price is going to be, your starting value is your purchase price. And then the capital gains is calculated from that to the sale price. The only way that changes is if somebody passes away, they get what's called a step up in basis, and it goes from the date of death value. And if you've inherited something, then that's the basis. But if you were added to a deed, then you've received a gift, not an inheritance. And so it's still calculated from that purchase price. So for houses that were bought back in the 70s in this area that are now worth $1 million, right, that can be a really hefty tax that was unexpected. So that's the biggest issue with real estate. What are some of the issues with bank accounts?
Yeah, so bank accounts sometimes, right, you think it's much easier. Oh, I'll just add a kid to the bank account and then they can help me manage my money. Problem is that if you have a joint ownership on that account, when you pass away, that account becomes that kid's account. Mm-hmm. So you might, hope or in your will have or trust have, I want everything divided equally between my kids. Great. But if that account has a joint owner, that goes completely to that other named person on the account, and they don't have to. Mm-hmm. They can just say, I've got mom's bank account. It's mine. I'm not sharing. The other piece is increased liability, right? Everything in that count could be counted as theirs for in lawsuits, bankruptcy, divorce proceedings. It's not like half of it is mine and half of it is yours. The whole thing is countable for their purposes. So while it might make things easier in terms of paying bills and that type of thing and managing your assets, it really causes some problems down the road. So instead, you can name someone as an authorized signer, just someone that can help write checks. And so that's really helpful, using a power of attorney, or if you're using a trust, right, those accounts are owned by your trust. And so therefore the successor trustees are able to step in and use those accounts and help paying bills and all of that.
Yeah. And you can do the same with real estate. So if your goal is to avoid probate, the best thing to do for your family to let them get that full value of the property, which a lot of times is people's largest asset, is to have them inherit it through a revocable living trust rather than doing the joint ownership. Or if you want to avoid probate, don't do it in a will. You need to do a trust for real estate.
Yeah. So our next thing not to do is naming co-trustees, co-personal representatives, co-agents,
co-roles.
Yes, any of that. And I think the thought is, especially folks that have just 2 kids, I don't want to pick a favorite, or I want people to split the work. And even if they get along, it causes problems, right? So, and those of you that have siblings or have multiple kids, I'm sure you can think of many times in which you didn't get along. and there was conflict. And so having co-roles just creates the possibility for conflict. And we, think it's really important, and why you do planning is to avoid conflict as much as possible.
Yeah, I think the other side of that too is just logistics. So with personal representatives specifically, everything has to be signed by all personal representatives. So logistically, if they live in different states or different areas, that can just become a issue as far as trying to get one person to sign, then mail it to the next person and do all of those things. So logistics have something to do with it as well. It's just easier to have one authorized person that is the decision maker and that signs all the paperwork, and that's done. So,
and I even think in instances where people get along, we see often people get their feelings hurt, right? Oh, well, they took too much of a role, or, oh, they're doing too much. And so just to get rid of all of that.
Yeah. I mean, and the truth is, like, by this point, you're probably either completely incapacitated or dead. So if somebody's mad at you for picking a favorite, you don't have to hear about it. So pick the person that you think will be able to handle it the best, and then talk to them. Talk to your kids and say, this is what I did. Or maybe put one is your personal representative and one is your healthcare agent and the other is the backup. Like, there's different things you can do so you're not showing favoritism. Sorry, there's doing something.
Construction.
Something outside of our window. So.
And then the last one is don't procrastinate. Everyone thinks, and I hear this a lot, and one of the things that we're setting out to do with all of our education is to make this comfortable so people don't wait, right? It's not a fun topic to talk about, but if you don't take action, then you're stuck with the default. You're stuck, you lose control, you don't have control of who makes your decisions, you don't control how your assets are divided, and it's really a giant mess for your family.
Yeah. And it's very stressful if there's no plan, because there's a whole lot of scrambling to try to find things and try to guess what you would have wanted. And then the law is not always what people think it is. And so trying to do things based on what the law has said rather than what you think that person would have wanted, you're kind of stuck with that. So it's just always better to plan. And again, we all know we will pass away one day. We don't know when. Hopefully we all live long, healthy lives, but it's better to have a plan now and then update it as you get older rather than wait until you're older or it's too late to do a plan.
So, and I think that is a good segue into join us next week.
Yes.
For our Pints and Planning event. We will be at two-story chimney cider works. Yes. And we will come join us for a drink, and we're going to be talking about estate planning and everything you need to know, and be there to answer your questions. So we'll put the link to the registration in the comments here, and we look forward to seeing you.
Have a good rest of your week.
Have a great week.